Lesson 4. Working with Flash. This chapter covers meaning of Flash, the Flash interface, drawing an object, grouping outline with fill, filling shapes with gradient fill, editing objects, animation in Flash. What do you mean by Flash? Flash is called a multimedia system for computers that is usually accessed through a web browser, though it is also used for stand-alone development and as a method of creating compelling user interfaces and menus on some cell phones. Flash is also known as the system that supports streaming video on sites like YouTube. Adobe is now promoting Flash through its Open Screen project, which counts several other companies as members. Some phones make use of a system said to be Flash Lite that offers a subset of the full Flash capabilities, which are sufficient to enable most online Flash-based video content to be viewed. Always remember, Flash was originally developed by Macromedia in 1996, but is presently developed and marked by Adobe Systems with the purchase of the company in 2005. To start Flash, follow the steps given below. Step 1. Click Start button. Step 2. Click All Programs. Step 3. Click on Macromedia. Step 4. Select the Click Macromedia Flash 8. Step 5. The opening screen comes up. Step 6. Click Flash Document under Create New Session. Step 7. The untitled Flash document appears. The Flash interface. When you first open Flash, you find an interface that appears something like this. Flash Workspace. The Tools panel, the Menu panel, the Timeline, the Property bar. The working area contains several parts. Let's see them. Always remember, Macromedia Flash can be played on mobile devices and computer operating systems via the Adobe Flash Player. Adobe Flash Player is a software used for displaying rich media content via web browsers and other computer programs. The most significant part in the working area is the stage, where we draw and fix many elements of our movie on stage. The stage has very significant properties because of the fact that they coincide with document properties. In a bid to access them, right-click anywhere on the stage with no objects and then on Document Properties. Dimensions. They determine the size of the movie. The smallest size is of 1 by 1 px pixels and the largest one is of 2880 by 2880 px. Background color. The color chosen here would be the one of the complete movie. Frame rate. It is used to specify the number of frames per second that come up at the movie. The default value of frame rate is 12. The bigger the frame rate, the faster is the animation. Ruler units. It is used to specify the unit of measurements of the rules, both horizontal and vertical. Make default. This button, added in the latest version of Flash, permits to store the properties of the present document. The timeline. The timeline comes up above the stage in Flash and fixes the flow of events. The timeline contains of frames and keyframes. Keyframes signify when new symbols come up on the stage. You can use layers to organize the timeline by grouping items together in order to not jumble up the timeline. You can also utilize the timeline to jump to several parts of the Flash animation or movie without having to replay the total project. The timeline. Timeline, keyframe, edit symbol, zoom, layers, frame rate, elapsed time, frame. Tools. In Flash 8, the tools are shown on the right-hand side of the work area by default, but you can drag them anywhere across the screen. You can apply these tools to make the symbols on the stage. This can be anything from text to images and shapes. There are 4 categories. Tools. These incorporate different tools needed for drawing. View. These incorporate tools such as the magnifier for viewing. Colors. These incorporate tools like to fill color with a color palette. Options. This displays modifiers for the selected tool. It affects the editing options or tool's painting. Tools. Arrow, free transform, line, pen, oval, pencil, ink bottle, eyedropper, hand, tool modifiers, subselection, gradient transform, lasso, text, rectangle, brush, paint bucket, eraser, zoom, stroke color, fill color. Menu. This is the location where we find controls for basic functions. Opening, saving, copying, pasting, opening particular windows and controlling them. Property Inspector Panel. We can use the Property Inspector panel to perform alteration to elements instantly on the stage or timeline. The program would display a list of all the attributes of the presently selected object in the Property Inspector panel for easy editing. Layers. Layers are like multiple film stripes stacked on top of one another, each having a different image that comes up on the stage. A layer has its own timeline with infinite frames. It can be defined as one independent movie of only one level. When we open a new Flash document, it has only one layer. We can add more layers to organize the animation and artwork in a document. We can draw and edit objects on one layer without affecting objects on another layer. The active layer is shown by a pencil icon next to a layer name in the timeline. Always remember, a layer could be defined as one independent movie of only one level. That is to say, one layer contains its own timeline with endless frames. Playhead. The playhead shows the present frame shown on the stage. The playhead moves from left to right through the timeline. Layers. Playhead. Layers. Drawing an object. Step 1. Click the pencil tool. Step 2. Specify the color with the stroke color tool. Step 3. Select Smooth Mode from the Option section. Step 4. Drag to draw an item as displayed in figure. Step 5. Select the Oval tool. Step 6. Drag on the stage to draw a circle that spans between the start and end points. Step 7. Select the Paint Bucket tool. Step 8. Select a fill color from the Color toolbox. Step 9. Click the shape or enclosed area that you desired to fill. Colors. Stroke color, fill color. Swap stroke and fill button. None button. Default stroke and fill button. Grouping outline with fill. When you draw a circle, Flash in fact makes two objects, the fill and the outline. This may create problems if you try to move your circle to a new location, because if you fail to select both objects, only the one selected will be moved. To avoid this, it's often a good idea to group the outline with a fill, thus locking them together as if it was a single object. Step 1. Ensure that both the fill and the outline is selected. You can do this in two means. A. Select the arrow tool in the toolbox and while holding down the Shift key, click on both the fill and the outline. B. Select the arrow tool in the toolbox and drag a rectangle outside the circle. Step 2. Press Ctrl+G to group the selected objects. If at a later point you desire to break apart the categorized objects, you can do it by selecting the grouped object, then pressing Ctrl+B. Step 3. Select the Selection tool and then select the circle and drag it over the drawn figure. Filling shapes with gradient fill. Follow the steps to fill the shape with gradient color fill. Step 1. Click Paint Bucket tool. Step 2. Click Fill Color and hold down the mouse button. Step 3. The Fill Color palette opens up. Step 4. Select a gradient color given at the bottom of the color palette. Step 5. Click inside the shape you desire to fill. Step 6. The gradient color fills the shape. Creating a new gradient. Gradients in Flash are very good blends of 2 or more colors that you can utilize to fill any shape or area, just like a solid color. The Flash Swatches panel offers some gradient presets you utilize right away. You can also utilize the Color panel to create your own gradients and add them to the Swatches panel. Linear gradient alters color from the beginning point to the end point in a straight line. Radial gradient alters color in an outward direction beginning from the focal point. Follow the steps given below to create a gradient. Step 1. Select any item on stage. Step 2. Open the Color panel, select Window, Color Mixer and select Linear Gradient from the Color Type drop-down list. Step 3. Double-click one of the horizontal sliders that come up above the gradient ramp at the bottom to view the